Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another Monuments Monday. This video is part one of a two-part video concerning one of the lesser visited monuments in our area, and one that hundreds of people drive by every day and no one seems to notice. As a matter of fact, when I decided to make a video about this marker, I Googled the monument inscription on the internet so I could read the inscription and remind myself of what the monument actually said and find the date of dedication. But no matter how hard I searched, there were no photographs of this monument on the internet. I think that says a lot. Although this monument is technically located in Franklin County, Pennsylvania, and it has nothing to do with the Battle of Gettysburg or the Gettysburg campaign, it still has a fascinating story. Later this year will be the 100th anniversary of the event that this marker commemorates. And personally, I would love for greater recognition to be paid to this marker. For this small stone honors the sacrifice of Pennsylvania State Trooper Francis Haley, who was killed in the line of duty on October 14th, 1924. In this first video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of the site where this event occurred. I am standing along the western edge of Adams County, Pennsylvania, along the border between Adams and Franklin County. I am also standing along one of the earliest roads in Adams County, the Black's Gap Road. This road was laid out in 1747. The Gettysburg-Chambersburg Turnpike was laid out atop this road and constructed between 1813 and 1815. Shortly after the opening of this road, a tavern was established at this site. And early on, this tavern was on the route of a prominent stagecoach route. The original tavern was said to have been built across the Adams-Franklin County border, and according to legend, the bar was placed on the Adams County side when Franklin County authorities visited, and on the Franklin County side when the Adams County authorities visited, apparently to avoid licensing and taxes. I would say that this is just a story. Personally, I really don't think that something like that would work for very long. And this was a major road and an early stagecoach shop, and really, there was no way they could have gotten away with something like that for long. In 1842, David Goodyear took over operating the tavern, and he was very successful. In 1848, Goodyear established Graffenburg Springs near this site, near the site of the tavern. The name was taken from a town in Germany which had a very famous mineral springs. And there's an article that appears in our newspaper starting in May of 1848, the Adams Sentinel. The proprietor of these springs has just completed his buildings for the purpose of a regular water cure institution, and it is now prepared to receive and accommodate all persons who wish to be cured of their diseases. The proprietor has procured the services of Reverend Smith, who will prescribe and superintend to the treatment of all who wish to try nature's best remedy to relieve them of their maladies. Of course, we're talking about water. In the article, there's a lengthy description of the baths and bathhouse rooms that were attached to this new attraction. Also, the article mentions the proprietor is now erecting a mansion house, 40 feet by 70 feet, 2 stories high, for accommodation of visitors and the public in general, which will be ready by the time the spring season commences. The springs are located in the South Mountain, 10.5 miles east of Chambersburg and 12.5 miles west of Gettysburg on the turnpike leading from Baltimore to Pittsburgh, with a daily stage running past the door of the institution. And obviously the idea here is that taking a bath is good for you. And I can see how maybe in a time where people did not take baths on a daily basis, this might come to a shock to many people. Bathhouses and cold springs were very popular. Here in Adams County, of course, we're talking about the Graffenburg Spring along what is now Route 30. And then, of course, south of us, not about 5 miles along the mountain range, was the Caledonia Cold Springs, which was established in 1854, and it also accommodated visitors in large quantities. And then a little farther south of that, near the Maryland border along the South Mountain Range, and again, on the Adams-Franklin County border, was the Monterey Springs, which was one of the most popular attractions of its day. And this was all prior to the American Civil War. There is one interesting thing in the advertisement I wanted to read, because again, what we're basically talking about is a cold spring where they fill up a pool with really cold, fresh mountain water. But there's a caution added here that David Goodyear, the owner here, wanted you to know. The public cannot be too much cautioned against the danger of indiscriminate bathing without the advice and direction of one fully acquainted with the system of treatment water. When properly used, it is the most powerful remedy agent in the world. But it is equally powerful to kill when injudiciously used. I guess you have to know how to take a bath, or it can be very dangerous. This David Goodyear in 1849 was named the postmaster of the post office that was established in this area. And the post office was named Graffenburg. And it's on the 1858 map as Goodyear's post office. And at the time of the Civil War, it was Benjamin Shriver who had the liquor license at the Graffenburg Inn. In October 1862, Jeb Stuart passed along this road, and a claim by Shriver indicates that there were some $40 of alcohol that were taken from the tavern at that time. In June and July of 1863, 50,000 Confederate soldiers passed over this road to Gettysburg. And we have a photograph in our collection of the Jacob Hassler house, just a short distance down the road, where apparently Robert E. Lee stopped and his horse drank out of the trough of the Hassler house. Some modern sources maintain that the inn was burned by the Confederates during the Civil War, but I think some of the later sources are getting the Graffenburg Inn confused with Caledonia Furnace that was burned by the rebels on June 26th. One little known fact in connection with the Graffenburg Inn has to do with the famous battle and the story of Amos Humiston. And a simple version of the story is that Amos Humiston was a soldier in the 154th New York. He was wounded in the fighting at the edge of the town on July 1st, 1863. after the battle, his body was found along Stratton Street. There was nothing on his body to identify who he was. He was going to be buried in an unknown grave, but clutched in his hand was a photograph of 3 children. And the guy who found the body, according to David Wills, Gettysburg attorney, was Peter Beitler. Beitler lived on Stratton Street, near where the body was found, and owned a marble and granite yard along the railroad a short distance from there. And Beitler was also married to the daughter of Benjamin Shriver, who ran the tavern here. And somehow, that daguerreotype of the 3 children made its way to the Graffenburg Inn. And it was here that the photograph was brought to the attention of Dr. John Francis Burns, who stopped at the tavern on his way to Gettysburg to care for the wounded. And it was Burns who's responsible for the articles being published in northern newspapers about the daguerreotype that led to Humiston's wife seeing the photograph, and today Amos Humiston is buried in a known grave in the Gettysburg National Cemetery instead of an unknown grave. In the early 1900s, the state of Pennsylvania took ownership of this inn, and for many years it was leased to various tavern owners and restaurateurs. Over the years, it was a very popular resort. In 1923, Caledonia Golf Course was opened here across the road. The last lessee of the inn was William Putch, who also owned and operated the Totem Pole Playhouse nearby. Putch was the husband of actress Jean Stapleton. On March 15, 1980, a fire broke out and quickly spread through the whole complex. 100 firefighters and 8 area fire companies could not contain the blaze. The building suffered over $300,000 in damage. The inn was never rebuilt. But directly across the highway from the inn is a marker which highlights the events that occurred directly in front of it on the afternoon of October 14th, 1924. And stay tuned for the next episode of Monuments Monday, where we talk about those events that the marker commemorates.